Galadriel from The Lord of the Rings is known for her magic mirror, but the Rings of Power has just revealed that its distinct insight serves a greater role. The mirror had previously been seen in the series of Lord of the Rings where it had a major purpose. Let's dive into the video to see what it means for Galadriel in the Rings of Power. Starting off, Galadriel's LOTR mirror may have a secret meaning. Does Galadriel's mirror in The Lord of the Rings of Power hint at a secret meaning? In the Fellowship of the Ring, when Frodo and the Fellowship arrive in Lothlórien, Galadriel, an illustrious and formidable elf, grants them the gift of her attention. Contrary to its misleading name, the mirror is actually a basin of water that functions like a palantír stone to disclose visions, distant events, and future forecasts. The origin and creation of the Mirror of Galadriel are kept a secret by J.R.R. Tolkien, but that might be about to change. Adar stings Galadriel in episode 6 of Amazon's The Rings of Power with the line, "Perhaps your hunt for Morgoth's successor should have stopped in your own mirror." His argument that Galadriel is a terrible power in Middle-earth stems from her goal to exterminate all orcs. But the Rings of Power's purposeful use of the word mirror is undoubtedly a reference to the Mirror of Galadriel. Therefore, Adar may be covertly confirming the mirror's actual goal, which is to restrain Galadriel's evil side. Whenever her inner darkness or bloodlust starts to show, Galadriel may glance in the mirror, and the horrible images it conjures up cause her to turn back toward the light. Galadriel's potential for horror is evident even in The Lord of the Rings, and since even Adar views her as a plague, Galadriel will ultimately need to find a way to control her fury. It's possible that the Mirror of Galadriel will be that something. Moving on, the Mirror of Galadriel can solve all our problems. There has been an immovable elephant in the room ever since the Rings of Power on Amazon debuted. Galadriel from The Lord of the Rings has practically nothing in common with Morfydd Clark's version. How did the ferociously driven warrior from the Rings of Power become the peaceful lady of Lothlórien, pleased to watch two hobbits take on Sauron rather than seeking retribution on her brother? The Mirror of Galadriel hint from the Rings of Power can close that gap. Galadriel is very different between the Rings of Power and the Lord of the Rings, which explains why she doesn't, or more precisely can't, help Frodo more directly. If the vengeful elf realizes that fighting Sauron is transforming her into the very darkness she despises, she may have fled into Lothlórien with a magic mirror to hide this dark side. Following up on The Rings of Power teases the mirror. The insult from Adar might not be the Rings of Power's only reference to the Mirror of Galadriel. A big shallow bowl of water is situated atop a cliff in the Second Age elven capital of Lindon for ceremonial purposes. The Mirror of Galadriel has a striking resemblance to this bowl, despite the Rings of Power not yet assigning any importance to it. Perhaps the relic was formerly the Mirror of Gil-galad, or maybe it was only a decorative item in the Rings of Power before being enchanted later. By the conclusion of J.R.R. Tolkien's Second Age, Lindon has significantly declined, while more recent settlements like Rivendell and Lothlórien have gained momentum. It follows that any magical artifacts kept in Lindon may very well be transferred to Lothlórien during the Third Age. Gil-galad's suspicion around the dwarves had found Mithril, his understanding of the elves light diminishing, and his hidden knowledge that Galadriel is correct about darkness persisting in Middle-earth might all be explained by the bowl from the Rings of Power being the future Mirror of Galadriel. Next up, how important is the mirror? The first scene that revealed the mirror was the scene that took place in the Fellowship of the Rings, Peter Jackson's first film adaptation based on the novels by J.R.R. Tolkien. A huge silver bowl, known as the Mirror of Galadriel, contained water from a nearby stream. The magical artifact was powered by Galadriel and was situated in the Lothlórien region of the Elves. Cate Blanchett, she and her husband, Lord Celeborn, Martin Kosoukas, were the lords of the land and were regarded as two of the most powerful elves in all of Middle-earth. In the capital city of Lothlórien, Caras Galadon, where Frodo and his hobbit companions finally arrived, Galadriel asked him to gaze into the enchanted mirror. The Mirror of Galadriel gave the person a glimpse into their past, present, or potential future. However, it was formed by what they wanted to see. In the Fellowship of the Ring, Frodo saw the scouring of the Shire, when he gazed into the Mirror of Galadriel. The incident was used to refer to a gang attack in which the people of the Shire were held hostage. The vision also showed how Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin were tied by the ankles and watched as Saruman and his army of orcs devastated the Shire. The scouring of the Shire truly happened in The Return of the King, the third and final book of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Although it doesn't actually happen in the movies, the Mirror of Galadriel used it as a warning to show what would happen if Frodo didn't destroy the One Ring. Lastly, does the theory of the newly found hint make sense? The mirror showed what was going to happen to Frodo in the future, which changed his mind completely about the possession of the ring. Similarly, it is quite possible that this new hint that the mirror may have shown Galadriel her dark side, or what she may end up doing in the future. The horrible images it conjures up may cause her to turn back toward the light whenever her inner darkness or bloodlust starts to show. Let's see in the upcoming episodes how much reality is actually behind it. In other news, starting off, is the Rings of Power any different from J.R.R. Tolkien's novels? The Rings of Power doesn't adhere to any one book. The Second Age of Middle-earth is when the Rings of Power is set. This age is notable for several events, notably the rise and collapse of the Númenórean kingdom and the creation of the Great Rings. The Lord of the Rings Appendix B, popularly known as the Tale of Years, has a condensed timeline of these events, albeit not much of it is set out in detail. New characters are introduced to Middle-earth in the Rings of Power: Nori Brandyfoot, Markella Kavanagh, a Harfoot with a thirst for adventure, Arondir, Ismael Cruz Cordova, an elf and a human who fall in love, Bronwyn, Nazanin Boniadi, and Halbrand, Charlie Vickers, a stranded sailor are a few of the new characters. There are precedents for these characters in Tolkien's canon, even if they are new to the Rings of Power. Also, the Rings of Power features some entirely new storylines that we're pretty excited about. Next up, the Rings of Power showrunners break their silence on the online backlash. The Rings of Power has received overwhelmingly positive reviews since its September 2nd release. The show's Nielsen audience is impressive. Over the course of its first 4 days, about 12.6 million Americans watched each of its first 2 episodes. However, the standard is absurdly high given that this is Lord of the Rings. Nobody is more knowledgeable about the stakes than Payne and McKay. In order to create their version of Tolkien's passion project, the 2 first-time showrunners set out on an unexpected journey nearly 5 years ago. As McKay puts it, they are now on the fault line of the culture war, with everyone from armies of anonymous Tolkien fans to the 2 wealthiest men in the world weighing in. Elon Musk's criticism on Twitter makes it difficult to concentrate on writing screenplays and overseeing a cast and crew of 1,300 on the most challenging TV production ever. Lastly, Amazon exec slams Game of Thrones. Jennifer Salka, the CEO of Amazon Studios, does not want HBO's Game of Thrones to be compared to Amazon's Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, at least in terms of the show's tone. Salka told Variety, "We understand from the outset that this was not our Game of Thrones. In fact, the fans voiced their concerns as soon as the agreement was finalized, pleading with the filmmakers to avoid using explicit material or violent acts that don't feel genuine to the tales Tolkien intended to portray." Salka claimed that Amazon wished to bring to our worldwide consumer base something that is optimistic, has brightness, and that a family can watch. "We wanted this series to pass on the Tolkien passion to future generations since so many people have grown up with the iconic books," Salka remarked. "If you're old enough to read the novels, you're old enough to watch the program," is the catchphrase we've been employing. That's a wrap for this video. What do you think about the new hint? Comment below. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.